Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Marketing Monday. I am really pumped up about this conversation today. We are going to be talking about video shoots and photo shoots. But before we get started, this. Man, I have a red shirt on today. It's the same as in the video. I didn't even plan it that way. Lori, Jason, welcome. Let's start by just having you briefly introduce who you are. We'll start with Lori and then go to Jason.
Sure. Lori Colhouer, Account Director at SageAge.
Yeah, and where are you from? Wait, labor back up a second. Where are you located?
Oh, I'm in Kansas City.
Okay, terrific. And Jason?
Yep, Jason Williams. I'm a creative director at SageAge. I've been with SageAge for about 3.5 years now, but working in senior living specifically for about 8. And I'm in Kansas City as well.
Terrific. Welcome. So we decided as we had a long conversation last week, sort of pre-planning our topic today, and what we'd like to talk about, what we're going to talk about is the use of video and photos. In some sense, the why almost seems superfluous because it's really clear you can't really do a website, you can't do marketing without video, without images, and maybe the images part is a bit more obvious than the video part. But talk to me a little bit. When do you need to redo your videos, or when you with a brand new community or customer that you're working with, how do you decide when you need new assets and how do you go about that?
Yeah, I'll start off, Jason. I think a lot of times sometimes you can just look at the photos and they just look dated. Another time is if you have something new that's happening at the community, maybe you've had an addition or you've added a new dining venue or you've renovated. And so you want to really be able to show that off. So, it's time to really dig in and do that.
Okay. And do you is there any kind of a pre-planned schedule where maybe you say every 2 years I've got to go back and reshoot, or is it more episodic than that?
A lot of times we'll try to do it like every 3 to 5 years. We kind of think about it and look at things, and we're always constantly looking at it. And then, especially if we're looking for specific shots, and we're like, oh, we don't have that. And a lot of communities don't want to use a lot of stock. So if we don't happen to have it, then it's kind of time for the photo shoot.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to. Well, I'm not. We'll talk about this later, but I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about stock versus actual residents, and I'm going to save this as a tease. But one of the questions one of the things we talked a little bit about is what do you do when you've gone through all this trouble of shooting some video or shooting a stills, and a resident passes away. So we'll hold the answer to that till a little bit later. So when you get ready to, let's actually walk through, and Jason, this probably is more for you. When you get ready to walk through this process of setting up a photo shoot, how do you think about it? And I'm guessing actually as I'm asking that, probably going to be both of you.
But yeah, I can take it to start, and Lori, feel free to jump in. But again, it comes back to kind of when is the time, for the shoot? Is there's updates, changes, or we just need to refresh, their photo video library. But the process with it always kind of starts with conversations with the community and planning process, and with the marketing team and a plan. And if we have a campaign going on, we'll like to shoot for a campaign, which we recently did for our community. And that's a slightly different approach. But, overall, the planning is the most critical part of the overall process. And that's, meeting with our client, discussing the photo shoot and their needs, and then even moving into, their budget and timing on all of that. And we like to go into that process of developing shot lists, mood boards, and schedules. And a lot of that is kind of built into the process of that collaboration and ongoing meetings. But the first step is just, understanding their needs and then having those conversations and collaboration with them before we even get too deep into the planning process.
Okay. And Lori, I suspect for you as you're managing these campaigns, you go into it with a pretty specific list of kinds of shots you want.
Yeah, we'll know. We're always trying to look at kind of what is that unique selling point of the community. So we want to make sure we're focusing in on that, and then also focusing in on, we know like a lot of the things that we've been doing and showcasing that maybe we wish we would have had a photo of that, or we've heard some great testimonial, that the community has said. So we'd like to be able to get the resident actually saying that. So we always kind of go into it. And especially, we've been on site, which we try to always do. With a new community, it might be a little bit challenging, but when you've been to the community, you're like, we definitely need this. We also want to get a shot of this because it shows so great. So it's kind of how we approach that.
Cool. One of the questions we didn't actually talk about, but I'm thinking about is when you go on site to do a shoot, do you typically do both video and still shots at the same time, or are those separate discrete functions?
Yeah, I can take that one. We tend to do both. We recommend to all clients that we go in, and even if the plan was just to do still photography, it's also nice to supplement that with video. So we would always recommend, because once we're already there and we're setting up the scenes and the shots, it's nice to have that B-roll content and video that we can piece it together for other assets later. If we do social campaigns that really lean into video, but also those testimonials. So we typically, because we're already investing that much time and we're on location for 3+ days, it's just an added benefit to get video, and video just performs really well as well. So we want to make sure we have all that content to also be able to last us for multiple years, knowing most clients probably won't do a shoot until every 3 years or so.
Yeah. And so if we were to take, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question, but if we were to take sort of the assets after you've been there for 3 or 4 days, how many photos, how much video in terms of either number of clips or minutes of video do you expect to get out of a shoot?
It's a lot. I mean, I'm reviewing, I was just on 2 back-to-back shoots, and I'm reviewing hundreds of still photos currently and going through and finding the best shots. And, a lot of it's kind of volume, and, we're working with residents who are not hired talent or actors. And so you want to get in, get them comfortable, and get as many shots as possible as we can. And hopefully coming out of them, I'm, typically I think of still photography probably having a couple hundred still images that represent a variety of things, everything from dining to social gatherings to, the grounds and the residents enjoying the grounds, to also architectural shots. We like to capture all the spaces, and we have so many opportunities to really highlight everything, the differentiators of the community, that we do come away with probably a couple hundred really good shots, maybe a little more depending on the community and how long we're there. And then as far as footage, I mean, it's hours of footage. So, each shot that we set up for still, we're also shooting that B-roll video. And so that's hours of footage of each of those that, we're in there for about an hour, hour and a half at each location shooting. Say it's dining, we're there an hour, hour and a half. We're capturing video in that entire time so that we can use it later.
Yeah, I as I was telling you before we went on air, I went up hiking on Saturday. And I've got this little, I don't know whether you've seen it, this little hover drone that's it follows behind. Oh, yeah. And so I shot like probably 8 or 10 minutes of video, and I shot a little bit of video with my GoPro and a few stills. And I really want to figure out how to use it, but it's going to take me hours to go through and so I don't know how you figure out the right things to do. Yeah, that seems like a huge challenge to me.
Yeah, we really lean on our editors, and they put together kind of a first version of everything. We all discuss kind of what the goal is of the video, and then they come to the table with all the footage and piece it together. And yeah, the drone is pretty compelling conversation. Recent shoot I had, we had 3 drones kind of going simultaneously. You know, and it's really cool footage now that you can capture that really shows the landscape and the interaction. And it was a lot of fun. This first time I worked with you know, an operator who had a mini drone and wears like a headset, and it looks like he's in a VR. And it's the type of drones that kind of like what they race, if you ever seen those. But he was doing some incredible shots of, we had kayakers out on a lake, and as they lifted their paddle up, he flew under the paddle and came back through. So pretty interesting stuff. I'm excited to see that footage. But yes, we use a lot of drone footage, and one of the videos that we'll show at the end will highlight some of that kind of more aerial type of drone footage.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah, we're going to take a look at some of the work that you've done. Okay, so let's talk about residents versus paid talent, and what happens when you're using residents and they pass.
Yeah. You know, it really depends on the resident, and it really depends on how you set up your release form too. So some people, the release form says it's in perpetuity. I never can say that word. Others, it's, you know, it's a little bit looser. Some, you know, some families, like if it was my family member, I would feel honored that they're still, you know, living on in a campaign, but maybe that's just because I'm a marketer. But some people will ask to take it out of the rotation. So, you know, if the resident's passed away, when you redo that brochure, can you then maybe rotate that out? That is the beauty of using paid talent as well. So then you don't have to worry about that aspect too. So we do try to line up a lot of residents. Sometimes it seems a little bit overwhelming to communities when we say, oh, we really want to have 60 residents, 40 residents, but it's for that exact purpose. So if we have one resident who's in a lot of the shots and that resident passes away and their family member wants them out, then your shoot is kind of all done. So then you're going to have to go and reshoot everything. So you can also use a lot of times for ADA. So a lot of residents don't want to be depicted with a cane or an accessibility device. So talent, you know, is a great way to do that. And then also for any, you know, type of minority representation as well. So
yeah, I know it's a hard topic to talk about, but in most of our high-end senior living communities, it's still predominantly white, and you need to make sure you have that representation. So that's really, really important. So do you ever have a resident where you think they're going to be terrific, and they just end up bombing? And what do you do about that?
Yeah, I can talk to that a little bit. It happens every shoot, you know. I think that's why it's so important to work closely with our clients to recruit the best residents, you know, those social butterflies, the people who bring the energy to things. And hopefully we're able to recruit the right residents who can kind of gather everybody else around and get them excited and have fun with the setup or shot. But yes, there are occasions where there's you know, some of the residents who come in and maybe they kind of stiffen up in front of the camera, or kind of like to, a lot of times they like to look at the camera as we're shooting. And we just try to comfort them, or at least pair them with people who are that social butterfly and put them at ease and get them in a conversation. What I tend to do when kind of setting up each shot is I want them to look and feel as natural as possible. So we'll get the environment set up. We'll walk them through kind of what we're doing, but we pair them up with, you know, friends or people who kind of have that energy. And then we tell them just to have a conversation, you know, ignore, we're not even here. And dining is probably the best example of that. You know, you put some wine in front of them, get them having a conversation, you know, they'll start drinking the wine. Before you know it, they just interacting like we're not there, and we move around the room and capture moments. So I think that helps a lot of times. And then we do try to position people who are maybe not as comfortable in front of the camera in certain locations so that we can capture the people with the energy the most. But we try to get everybody involved. They've given us their time and they've shown up. So we make sure we try to get everybody in and shot.
So I got to ask, do you have any stories about things that went wrong?
Well,
Oh,
I think
yes.
for me, the common one is always is kind of that food type of shot where we have appetizers and drinks. And I don't know if it necessarily goes wrong, but it's just funny every time that you put food in front of residents and seniors, before we can even start the shot or the video, they're eating it all. And it's like we have to reset and get more food in there. So just always being mindful if there's food, drinks involved in the shots, most likely the residents are just going to start consuming it. And sometimes, you know, the chef has prepared these gorgeous entrees to be featured. And to be honest, we always tell them beforehand, they may be undercooked. So just be cautious and kind of always stay on them because they will eat the food as soon as you place it down in front of them.
Yeah, I never really thought too much about the food. I have a grandson who's a budding actor, and he did a
Ooh.
round table pizza commercial, and taught he spent a day on the shoot, and he said they went through like 30 pizzas because in this particular shot they had to have a new fresh pizza every time they took a take on it. So how do you manage this whole food part, right? I mean, you've got, because they've still got to serve meals. So how do you work around that?
Yeah. Lori, do you want to talk about the schedule of when we plan those?
Yeah, so it really is. Like, can't express it enough. It's like all that work that goes in on the front end of the shoot is so valuable. So you're working with the chef, you're working with the dining director, and really seeing what's going to work best for them. A lot of times it's like we'll take a whole day and that's all we do is dining. But if that's what the chef wants. But we're trying to do it when dining's not actually happen, which probably sounds maybe a little off to some people, but we don't want to interrupt the dining process. We don't want to interrupt anything that's going on at the community. So we're really working with the community ahead of time. So what's going to be the most convenient times? What's the lighting going to look like? So there's so many factors that go into that. And then, you know, how many dining shots are there? Is there outdoor dining? Is there the bistro? Is there the formal dining? So really working through what it is we're trying to capture on those. And then Jason and his team is really great because then you have to think through, there's only certain times a day that you can do things outside. So you got to work around that. And then you got to work around, you know, it's like, well, we know we want this resident in because they're head of the dining committee, but they're only available, you know, because they're all busy at these communities. So, you know, it's then we're working around that. So it's really a lot of planning on the front end.
Yeah, the dining is probably the most complicated setup of the entire shoot. And yeah, it's that planning. And as soon as we get there, we meet with the chef and we try to have the chef have all his entrees prepared about a half hour before we start shooting. He starts bringing, or she brings in the entrees, and we shoot them individually on a plated kind of table setting. So gorgeous shots of their entrees. And then it's just kind of a mad dash of just getting the table set, the wine out there, having a server out there and pouring wine, and then there's a lot of moving parts, but it takes, you know, the entire team to bring it together for sure.
It actually sounds like a lot of fun to do. One other question. Go ahead.
It is a lot of fun, and you pick up so many valuable things from the community. Even if you've been there a couple of times, you're learning more things. You're hearing those residents talk. You hear those nuggets from the residents about what they love about the community. Like, oh my gosh, we can make a campaign out of that, or we can do something with that. So it's really fun.
Yeah, I'd almost think you'd want to have something like a GoPro or even just a cell phone camera just kind of running in the background to catch those spontaneous things. And there might be some really rich stuff there. Maybe you do that.
We usually have kind of a behind the scenes person. So one of our producers or team members will be behind the scenes with, trying to just capture the moments and, you know, the crew kind of setting up and just kind of the cool things that happen that you don't see otherwise. To be honest, we're just kind of nonstop shooting and recording during that. Once we get the scene set and we get the residents comfortable and the food out there, we just let them enjoy. And like if we're in there for an hour and a half, it's nonstop shooting from all different angles. But we have scenes.
Yeah, some of the best shots that we come away with sometimes are the unplanned ones. Like we're walking from point A to point B and we see something. It's why you always have your release forms with you and you're like, can we get your photo? And they're like, yes. And then it's like, wow, we used that. We would never have got that. She was never in the shoot. We didn't plan this shot. So you're always just on the lookout for what you can capture on the spur of the moment too.
That's a great point. There was a testimonial opportunity. I was just in conversation with a woman who was watching us, just observing, because that's another thing when you're at these communities, you get kind of the people on the outside just curious on what's happening and asking. And I was just in a conversation with her as we were getting set up, and she had an incredible story about how she had to move into assisted living for a period of time to recover. But her story in AL and how they were able to help her, she was able to move back to IL faster. And that was not a story we had planned. And so we just spontaneously like, hey, we got to get your story and sit down with you for about 20 minutes. And it was really compelling. So it's always looking for those opportunities and having conversations with the residents.
So I want to talk a little bit more about this conversation process. I think it's a fascinating question. How do you get residents to really open up and, oh man, this is going to sound wrong when I ask this question, but I don't know how to do it better. How do you get them to tell you the story you want them to tell you?
I think the talent is in our videographers and the way they approach it. So the way we traditionally film the testimonials is we seat them in kind of a space that's comfortable. It's quiet, but the person we work with most closely, he's great at just comforting them and treating it like a conversation. And we have a series of questions that we always like to go into the interview with, so that we make sure we capture kind of the variety of the lifestyle and get their story. But also, if he hears something that's interesting, he might start to ask more follow-up questions, and it's more long form, 20 straight minutes of just sitting down and having a conversation with them. And then the magic happens in, they kind of come out and they tell you their story. They're not shy about things. And then in the editing portion of it, you can pull those nuggets out and then align them with all that B-roll footage that we've captured during the shoot. And that's where the stories come through.
And then we also, kind of coming back to that planning, if we're sitting down with someone, we're making sure we understand, why did the community choose this person? So we want to know those top 3 things, because a lot of times, you do get in front of them and they start talking about the thing that's most relevant instead of the thing that we want them to really hone in on. So then once again, the videographer is really redirecting that to try and get that, that one quote that we know is the reason why they were there. And then we might get more as well. And then we also know, we've selected them for A, B, and C. And then we also are planning those shots. So if it's like, they were never a painter until they got here, so then we know we want to also get them painting. So then when their testimonial is happening, you're also seeing this beautiful painting as well. Or they're biking through the community, so we have that shot. So it's kind of like they're saying it, and then you're also seeing them do it too.
So that actually brings me to another question. How do you figure out the B-roll stuff? I mean, to me, the residents you want to take and the meals and sort of the primary storytelling is really easy. But how do you figure out the B-roll? You sent me some examples over the weekend, and there were some beautiful drone shots. The one that we're not going to look at it today. Maybe, Jada, we can drop those links into the chat for people to see all of those. But the one that really struck me was the Kindle drone shot up in the air with the commuter train going by. I don't know. It just really resonated with me. So how do you figure those out? How do you plan those? Are they spontaneous too, or are they all planned out?
We try to plan out as much as we can. Again, coming back to what Lori mentioned at the beginning, what are the differentiators for the community and what, they can provide residents. And so, again, this is the theme here: plan. It's conversations we have with the clients on, what are those things that we want to pull through, and do we have a campaign that we're creating as well to align with that? So all of it comes through next step after those conversations of creating that shot list, documenting all the shots we plan to capture, and each shot in that shot list, we also include a mood board with it to give them some inspiration on what we plan to capture. That really drives the shoot. And every shot listed in that shot list will have both still and video content associated with it. And in our shot list, we always add a section in there for architectural types of shots, which include drone footage. And we love to capture those first thing in the morning. Typically, we're at the community around 7:30 getting those shots, and they're the most compelling. It's usually pretty quiet. The sun, the light, and everything is absolutely gorgeous. And so we always capture those at every community.
So what happens if you have a disaster like a rainstorm or a thunderstorm or something like that?
That's top of mind. That happened to me last week, actually. We had planned everything out. We had our schedule together, shot list, and I was up in Buffalo, New York, and a storm decided to roll through first thing in the morning when we had back-to-back-to-back outdoor shots. And so it's just being nimble, working with the residents, the community, and just being honest with them and say, hey, I'm sorry that we're going to have to push back. And a lot of times what we'll do is, if we have to be inside, maybe we swap a shot that we had later in the day that was going to be like architectural, where we're just going around with the crew and shooting spaces, interiors. We might get those knocked out in the time when it's raining, but then work closely with the residents and staff and just kind of keep them posted on, hey, we're thinking your shot now will be at 10 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock. And I will say all the residents I worked with have been great, incredible. They're excited to be part of it. We usually just let them, hey, you can go back to your residence. We'll contact you when we're ready. And all of them seem to be perfectly fine with that. But that was honestly the first shoot that I've been involved with. I've probably done 15 of them. That was the first one that, weather really had an impact, but we were able to make it through.
Yeah. So do you ever go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I think I might be interpreting what you're going to say. Like, I've been on some where we knew going into it, it was just going to be like a monsoon the whole time. So, with the community, they're like, I think we have to reschedule this because we're not going to be able to get what we want. So then we'll just cancel the shoot and then we'll just plan for the reschedule. So it has only happened. I've only had that happen twice that I can think of. One was because of a drought. So everything was like brown. So they didn't want to capture that. And then the other one where it was just going to rain all week. So they're just like, we're not going to be able to get those outdoor shots that really make their community. So we rescheduled. But I've only done 2 reshoots in many years. So
yeah. So I have two questions for you that I want to touch bases on. The use of, do you use local videographers, photographers, or do you, when you're working with your clients, supply the professionals, or how does that work? Do you have any recommendations or thoughts?
It depends on the shoot, kind of coming back to the beginning of kind of what are their needs and what type of shoot do we need to help support them with. And so we have a range that we help our clients with. It could be from the bare bones of, hey, their budget only allows for them to hire a local photographer, videographer, but we help them at least with the shot list and discussing the types of assets that we need. And so that would be the bare bones all the way to the shoot I did a couple weeks ago where it was campaign focused, where we had campaign ideas. We were shooting to an idea along with building assets for the community to work on. And so it's everything in between. And as far as the teams we work with, we have maybe 2 or 3 teams that we can call at any given time based on schedules and the type of work we need. We work with them. So yeah, it's a variety, and they're kind of scattered throughout the country.
Cool. Now, and the other thing I was going to ask, I'm sort of running short on time because I want to actually look at some videos and some pictures on some campaigns that you've done. But the other thing I was sort of thinking about, and as we do a lot of video, I've had this happen a couple of times. Would you ever get people who are just upset where you end up doing, say, a video interview or a video shot with somebody, and when you go back and you start editing and look at it, you go, oh, that's just terrible. And you have to just dump it, and people are unhappy. I mean, I can think of an interview I did with somebody who worked in the industry a few years ago, and I actually knew as I was doing the interview, I just couldn't get anything interesting out of her, and it was so hard. Thoughts on that? I guess it's just part of the business. Huh?
Yeah, I'll take that one. We had one at a recent shoot, and it was one where, once again, it was a really key learning point. They really wanted this specific angle of, assisted living to IL or something. Like Jason's like, exactly knows which one I'm talking about. And we did not do the upfront work. They're like, no, I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. And this gentleman just I don't think he had anything too exciting to say. There was one thing he did say that was exciting. So we took that, but luckily it was on the front end of the shoot. So we were able to pivot and really be able to find somebody else to then work into that to get that talking point that we were really looking for.
And it sounds like when you go in, you build in quite a bit of redundancy, so that if that happens, you've still got plenty to work with. So.
Yeah, that's the goal. Is we try to build a schedule in a way that, you know, we hopefully will get those out of the way and figure it out. And that one woman that told me her story, just kind of in passing, was similar to the one that Lori mentioned. And, you know, I think assisted living and, you know, testimonials, interview, you know, typically, you know, the people in AL, you know, they're there for a reason, and, you know, they're struggling with things, so it may not be as positive. But, you know, we had one of those like that where she just wasn't really positive about not necessarily what the community was doing, but just kind of her situation. And so that's where me and passing had another story, and we were able to swap out. And yeah, so here's a few of the photos that we have up on screen. And, you know, I think what my goal is as kind of the art director designer on it, is put people in situations that where they're comfortable. You know, on that first page, we showed two sisters knitting down in the corner. That's an activity they do all the time. So finding the right residents who do that already, and then just putting them in the environment, and they were fun already. It was like we weren't even there. They were just having fun interacting. And then the woman in the upper left, intergenerational, again, I think she was a model in her past life. Yes. And she was just natural. And again, just get her down on the floor with a grandchild and let them just do what they do. And, you know, we're just kind of in the background capturing moments is usually the best shots.
Yeah. Well, I love the shot. Go back to that last one just a second, Jada. I really love the chef, that deep level of concentration and care. I mean, just it's really, really neat. Let's take a look at the next one there.
He was incredible. He also did that plated shot you see in the bottom center. He went all out. Some of our chefs like to show off during this time, which is great for photography. Yes. And so it's really gorgeous photos. And then the lower left, that was a community in Chicago where they had this really cool alley that was converted into kind of this Italian kind of store, and kind of it had this really cool vibe, nostalgic vibe. So again, almost location just makes the photography. And then, like I said, the key is to kind of get them in there comfortable with people they're like-minded with or having fun with, and then just capturing moments.
Cool. Great. I love that. Great water shots, and yeah, those are just beautiful. Let's take a look at the video here.
Sure.
This entire video that we're going to look at is about 3.5 minutes. We're not going to show the whole thing, but let's just take a look at 20 or 30 seconds of it, and then have you talk a little bit about it.
From the first day that I moved in here, everybody was so nice and friendly, from security to the maintenance and the residents. They just acted as if they knew me all their lives.
I love being around plants and open air. I love the concept of having houses and being able to also have your pet here, which is
very good.
Smile when you see a pet.
Yeah, I see a lot of pets in there.
Yeah, and this community specifically, it's this community in the middle of Miami. You can't really see it, and it's got all this land, but it's surrounded by a gate, and they have a lot of peacocks that are there. So we were always trying to get that exact shot of the peacock when it was raising its feathers. So we finally got it, and then after we got the shot, we could have got like 5 or 10 more of it. Get that first one was a little bit of a challenge.
Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, I will tell you, the one thing I really love about the videos is you've done such a nice job of capturing how people are talking about, I'm having a great life living here. And so many of the videos I see done in senior living are people telling their life history, which are lovely, but from a sales and marketing standpoint, I don't think have a lot of value. But, you know, from the first day I was here, people were so friendly and I had all these conversations, and that just becomes such a powerful, powerful message. Jason, Lori, thank you. This has been a great conversation. Hang on for just a second, and we will be back with you on Friday for Foresight TV.